Grab something to drink. Got some cold coffee in here. It is time to chit chat about my Easter week trip at Walt Disney World. My trips to Walt Disney World have begun to be kind of like a game. I love to do different scenarios, try different things out so that I can report back for those families that are looking for like different scenarios and seeing if what they're thinking in their head is gonna like work for their family. So I always love to try new things, whether it's outfits, doing the dining plan, not doing the dining plan, having multipass, not having multipass, how the crowds are during the week that I'm at the parks, because right now I'm on a personal goal of going to Walt Disney World for every single week of the year and to report back on that. And so this just gives a good insight for you traveling and having those questions, so I can come back and tell you what expectations were versus reality. So like I said, grab yourself something to drink, maybe grab some paper and a pen, and let's take some notes and let's talk about Easter week at Walt Disney World. Packing for this trip, I did something a little different and I tried to consolidate quite a bit because, Southwest is going to start charging for bags soon. So I wanted to see realistically what it felt like, how it was just having like one large suitcase and really condensing things down. And I can tell you, I don't like it. I didn't like it at all. It made the suitcase way too heavy, especially for the things that I bring, mainly like my weighted blanket that I have to have whenever I travel. Well, I have to have in general whenever I sleep. It just helps my ADHD self relax. So that really like puts the weight over the edge. Not to mention having just that one big suitcase really did not leave much for me to bring home in terms of souvenirs. Now, granted, this trip I really didn't get a whole lot of souvenirs. Honestly, I only got one thing, and it was something that my daughter requested for me to bring back for our trip in November. Going through the airport, having my bag being over the limit, having to take stuff out at the airport and put it in my travel backpack. From now on, I know I have to have 2 suitcases no matter what. So I have to have a large one and then a small carry-on one and then my travel backpack. So note taken there. And as I'm thinking that through, I will say, now I am somebody that likes to have something and not need it versus need it and not have it. However, this trip, I really did a good job and honed in on the things that I really, really thought I would need. Everything that I brought, I used. Every single thing. So I still brought things that the average person might not have brought with them, but I needed them in the room or on my trip at some point. So I didn't over excessively pack. So I wanted to add that in there as well. So that also showed me, since I used every single thing that I brought, that it just brings the point home that yes, I do still need 2 suitcases. I also really tried to just have my crossbody bags that I brought with me as my park bag going into the parks. And already on day 1, I knew that just was not going to work. So luckily, at the last minute, I did decide to take all of my water park stuff and pack it into this bag and put it in my travel backpack. That way, whenever I got to the resort, I could just drop my bags and I already had this with me and I could just change at the resort and then be done with it and not have to worry about anything. Well, thank heavens I did that, because this ended up being basically my backpack for the entire trip. Things that I needed that were just a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier, and didn't like weigh down my crossbody bag so much. And it really did help a lot. So note taken as well. I do always need crossbody bag because I still like to hold those important things close to me, and then also things that I grab quickly, regularly, which is like sunglasses. And then I have a quick place to put sunglasses, like if I go on a ride or anything like that. But I do need a backpack of some sort to hold my popcorn bucket, hold any snacks that I didn't eat, so I can put stuff in there. At this point in the trip, I did have like a top layer on top of my stuff, so I was able to put my sweatshirt, if I didn't need it, into the bag. So I just still felt like I needed the extra backpack as well as my crossbody. Weather for this trip was as expected. In the mornings, it was in the 60s, and then at the beginning of the trip, weather during the day was like in the 70s, 75, 78, but as the trip progressed, it got warmer and warmer and was in the 80s by the time that I left and went home. So all the outfits that I had worked beautifully, and then also having the cover that I did. So I did have 2 different sweatshirts that I brought with me, and those were just the exact coverage that I needed to be comfortable comfortable in the mornings and in the evenings whenever the sun was either coming up or going down. As far as all of my outfits went, I really did love all of them except for one. Now I'm getting a lot better and a lot realistic about how I'm going to be in the parks with my outfits. You know, whenever you, well, this is me personally, whenever I look at the influencers that do all of the, you know, they're just decked out in Disney stuff from head to toe, they're not in the parks all day long. They're not there from rope drop until the end of the night, getting on rides, doing all of this stuff, carting around stuff all day long, sweating, having kids. So, you know, those cutesy outfits are not always realistic. And it took me a couple of years to like be okay with that and just put Disney touches on outfits that I know that I'm going to be comfortable in. And I'm finally to that point where now I know exactly what I want to wear and how comfortable I'm going to be and how realistic it's going to be. And I like the way that I put the Disney touches on my outfits, and that is with like things that go in my bags, my hats, my ears, and then sometimes my socks. I'm good with that. I do still like to put in, you know, a little bit of vintage Disney here and there, but I can't be all decked out, and shoes are a huge thing for me. I have to have comfortable shoes. I did bring a new pair of shoes this time, and those were Nike Air Maxes, and those did not work. They worked for about a half a day, but then they really started to like pinch my toes is what hurt. Not the bottom of my feet, the toes started to hurt. So I did really have to wear those sparingly throughout my trip. And just like every other trip, my Brooks are my tried and trues. My Tevas did really good for the two days that I wore those, but my Brooks were just like walking on air and just perfect for the entire trip. So now I'm really on the hunt for more colors, like kind of more designs in them, so they go with more outfits, because I only have the one pair. I only have the one white pair. And then I will say, out of all the outfits that I wore, there's only one outfit that I wasn't a fan of, and that was my Magic Kingdom outfit. It was just the big shirt itself. Now, I brought that shirt to be double duty because it was also my cover up for my bathing suit, and I knew I could just have like an extra cover up for like my Magic Kingdom day, but for my cover up, it worked beautifully. But it was too big, and I just felt like I was swallowed in it, and I just, you know, it was just one of those things where it was just irritating all day long. So probably out of all of my outfits, my Magic Kingdom Day outfit, just the cover up part, just was not a fan of that particular outfit. And then two things as far as like medical things go. Going into this trip, I had a little bit of a cold. You know, whenever you have grandkids, you know, you just kind of catch everything because they're all over you, fingers in the mouth and all that. So I was walking into this trip feeling under the weather, and I had rested like a good 4 days before that, taking all the medicine, sleeping, having all the herbal teas, just trying to get myself better before I got on an airplane. The first 2 days was a little sniffly, and my throat was a little itchy going into it. And I'm so glad that I brought Mucinex with me, Claritin with me, Vicks with me, and I also brought cough drops. If I did not have those things, I would not have survived the trip. I will say, you know, at the beginning, it was still on the cooler end, and then as it got warmer, I got better throughout the trip. But I will say I started out just a little yucky, feeling a little yucky under the weather, but the medications that I brought for my spring trip helped tremendously. And then of course my bath soak always helps. I was proactive in using that and started like on my first night soaking and making sure that, you know, I was rested with my entire body. And then towards the end of the trip, because this was such a short trip and I was getting a lot in, and I was in the parks basically from sunup until sundown almost every day, I really did have to use my BioFreeze, and I really just used it like on my heels and then on my calves and then on my shins. Those helped tremendously having that. It was like walking on air by the end of the trip. So let's go have a relaxing evening in Epcot. Side note, I smell like a medicine cabinet. I feel like an old lady. I had to do like a deep massage on my calves and my heels of BioFreeze. I feel like I'm walking on air right now. But I was laughing at myself. I'm like, oh, I know you smell like a medicine cabinet. Now, I always take you with me on my trips in my Instagram stories as well, and I also asked on my departure day if you had any specific questions about the trip. And I had just a few questions come through, so from this point on, I will answer those as we go through the next couple of sections. I did get a question on if I stayed at Disney's All-Star Sports, and yes, I did. There is always a time and a place for the certain kind of trip, and this trip for me needed to be on the lower cost end. Number one, I was only there for a short amount of time, and I was there for 8 days. I'm usually there for about 14. 14 is like my minimum. That has become my trip, as a 14-day trip, as what I need to be able to restfully get things done and get everything that I want done. So I crammed a very large amount of content and things to check off my list in 8 days. And I knew I was not going to be at the resort much. So I did not see myself paying moderate or deluxe prices if I wasn't even going to be able to enjoy the resort. So that is number one, why I picked Disney's All-Star Sports to begin with, to stay there. And sports and movies are my two favorite All-Stars to stay at. Now, there were 2 sections to this trip, but I did stay at Disney's All-Star Sports the entire time. So the first half of my trip, I stayed in the football section, and my room was like facing the road, basically like the front of the resort. So I was closest to the bus station, like to get to the parks. I will say you could hear the traffic from the road specifically, but it wasn't like that bad. I could just hear the hum of the cars going by. It was also cheer season. So it started out, like the first half of my trip, I could tell that it was like US cheerleaders. And then the second half of my trip, it was international cheer and dance. So that was actually, I did not mind it so much, but I could see how a family that had to come back and take a nap, and if your door was facing towards like the football section, like the inside of the football section, was a little bit aggravated because it was quite loud. They did have their boxes out there. They did have their music going. They were practicing. The amount of people that were there, it really was sort of a madhouse. Again, I don't mind that so much, but I didn't have little ones that I had to worry about that had to take a nap and needed that rest. So food court, was also very busy. However, I did not really eat at the food courts. I planned it to eat at the parks and to eat at other resorts. So I really wasn't there in like that food court having to wait for food or anything like that. But just know, during the spring season, you will have, especially at the All-Star resorts, you will more than likely have quite a bit of crowds coming for cheer and dance season. And then for the last half of my trip, like I said, I was still at All-Star Sports, but because they couldn't keep me in the same room because there were sections that were blocked off for the international cheer and dance teams that were coming in. So they did have to move me from where I was in the football section back to the baseball section. And the walk just added maybe like another minute to like get to transportation and dining and things like that. So in terms of like the Disney's All-Star Sports and your sections, you, depending on where your room is, probably the longest walk that you'll have, and it also depends on how fast you walk, will be like 3 to 5 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes is basically what the average is. But again, it just depends on if you're like on the back end of everything. So, but for me in general, my walk to bus transportation, dining, the lobby, and all of that was like 2 to 3 minutes every day. Now let's talk dining plan and planning versus reality. So I went into this trip knowing that I was going to use 2 quick service dining credits on my arrival day, my Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom Day, Magic Kingdom Day, and then I would use 1 credit on my Epcot Day because I was going to use my snack credits to eat at the booths for the Epcot's International Flower and Garden Festival, and then 1 dining credit on my basically departure day. So I only did the dining plan for part of my trip and then ended out without the dining plan. So for me, for the dining plan for 2025, it cost $59.14 for me each day, which came out to a total of $295.70 for the entire 5 days that I used the dining plan. When it comes down to like the math and how I look at using the dining plan. So first off, I take the refillable mug, which right now is $22.99, divided that by 5. That's roughly, $5 a night. So I kind of put that into the total and subtracted that. And then knowing that I wanted to stay about $6 threshold for snacks each day. So 5 and 6 equals 11. So I subtracted that from my $59. That left me with $48. So that also let me know that each quick service meal, since you get 2 per day, needed to be around that $24 mark. So that is kind of like the baseline of what I try to hit every single day to be able to make sure that I at least evened out. And spoiler alert, I did not eat all of my dining credits, but I still came out a little bit ahead. So let's get into like the small details, what I had each day and my thought process as the week progressed. For my arrival day, I had 2 quick service dining credits planned for that day. I used 1 at the water park, and then I also went to Disney Springs that evening and ate at Polite Pig. My total for this day was $59.58. Now, Polite Pig had a ton of food, and I basically brought half of that back to my room, and that's going to play part into the rest of the week. Hollywood Studios, I also had 2 quick service credits planned for that day. Ronto Roasters was my breakfast for that morning. That is like my go-to in Disney's Hollywood Studios. And then I also took a time out and went to Disney's Riviera Resort and had like a late lunch, early dinner there at Primo Piatto. And this day's total came out to $48.77. For my Animal Kingdom day, this was my sleep-in day. Now, I also brought with me oatmeal packs and packed those in my suitcase. So whenever I woke up that morning, I did have a little bit of work that I needed to do, so I did have oatmeal that morning. But then early lunch was starting to kick in. So I just took what I had, ribs from Polite Pig, and went to the food court, used the microwave, heated that up, and that is what I had for lunch for my Animal Kingdom day. And then whenever I got into the park, I only used 1 quick service credit for that day, and that was at South Tule Canteen. And my total for this day, what I would have spent would have been $23.28. For Magic Kingdom, I had 2 quick service credits planned for this day. The first one was at Pecos Bill. This is a go-to for me almost every single trip. I always get the nachos and a drink. And then, of course, my tradition whenever I am watching Happily Ever After is to get corn dog nuggets from Casey's Corner, and then a Coke, and then also plastic cheese. I did pay out of pocket for the cheese. I did not use a snack credit for this. And if you want to know how to make the most out of your dining plan, make sure that you are pushing that subscribe button, because I am coming at you like with all the tips and tricks that I learned throughout this week of using the dining plan and the small things to look for before you push that purchase button and using your credits. My total for Magic Kingdom, what I would have spent would have been $34.36. For Epcot, I had only planned to have 1 quick service meal, and the rest I was going to eat at the festival booths and use all of my snack credits. Well, that did not work out the way that I had planned it. Number one, I just didn't have the appetite by the time this day rolled around, because the week was getting warmer and warmer. And when it does that, I eat less and less because I don't like to be bogged down. I did have lunch at Regal Eagle, and it's one of my favorite places to go to in Epcot for a full meal and a plentiful meal for the cost. I had 2 things from the food booths. I had beef tips and I had the tostada. And then I ended up kind of needing to think fast on my feet for my other 3 snacks. I ended up getting 2 sundaes in Magic Kingdom. And then on my Animal Kingdom day, I did also end up getting like a fruit bar. And my total, my plan going in using the snack credits all in one day, I just put it all together for this day. So using all of my 5 snack credits and my 1 dining quick service credit for this day, the total came out to $77.27. And then on my last technical day of having the dining credits, I knew going in that I was going to use 1 quick service dining credit. And then for this day, my total would have been $24.94. So if I would have paid out of pocket for everything that I had this week, my total would have been $268.20. Since I paid for the dining plan, I'm at a loss of $27.50. But I have a little caveat to that. With the refillable mug, from the day that you activate it, you actually have 14 days to be able to use it. So technically, my dining plan ended on the 20th. So I still had my refillable mug for the 21st and the 22nd. And I took a mental note of how many times I used it, and I used it twice each of those days. So again, if you want to get technical, each fountain drink at a resort is $5.29. So having that refillable mug, I did not have to pay for those drinks. So again, if you want to get technical and you want to add those drinks that I was able to get from my refillable mug coming from my dining plan, I actually kind of came out even though I did not eat one of my quick service dining credits. Now the question is, would I do it again? And you know, I teeter back and forth on this. I kind of have the mindset of what I'm going to do whenever I go into my trip. So knowing that I had the dining plan, I did splurge on things that I probably would have not done because of cost. So knowing that I could have gotten the most expensive thing on the quick service menus, I went ahead and did. Also taking advantage of the alcoholic drinks being in there as well. Now, I don't drink heavily on my trips because I can't at my age anymore, but knowing that I could have a couple throughout the trip, again, a splurge that I probably would not have done, paying out of pocket, but knowing that it came with what I had already purchased, then I went ahead and did it. Through the week, I collected like the single serve alcoholic drinks. So on the last 2 days that I knew that I was just going to be working from like the resorts and by the pool, I had those single serve alcoholic drinks because I'd saved them from using them from my dining plan. That also was just like heaven, knowing that, you know, it's girl math, knowing that I didn't have to technically pay for them and I had them for my rest days. And as I was using the dining plan throughout the trip, and I was really seriously thinking about being with my daughter's family as we go in November, I am seriously thinking about adding the dining plan to it. Just the peace of mind that it's already prepaid for and they can just pick whatever they want to and not have to worry about cost or anything. I like the thought of that. So I do go back and forth. Like if it's just me, I'm more than likely not going to get the dining plan because of I know how I eat, and especially if it's in the warmer months, I don't eat as much and I like to eat light, like salads, you know, and just salmon, you know, stuff like that that gives me the protein that I need but doesn't weigh me down. However, knowing how my daughter's kids are and how they eat, and then how my daughter and her husband eat, having the dining plan is actually going to be a peace of mind knowing that they can order whatever they want on the quick service dining menu. So again, I always teeter back and forth whether it's good or whether it's not. I did also want to add for the things that I did pay out of pocket for. So I usually bring a popcorn bucket with me every trip because don't tell anybody, but if you bring a past popcorn bucket, now I try not to go like, 10 years ago popcorn bucket, but 2 or 3, I might bring one. They'll still refill it for the $2.25. And I did not bring my popcorn bucket with me. And when you get in there and they start pumping the smells and you walk past that popcorn is like my downfall at Disney World. It's like one of my favorite snacks. I had to buy a popcorn bucket. So I did buy a popcorn bucket during my dining plan week for $14. I did also buy a Mickey bar, and the Mickey bar was $6.50. I also paid out of pocket for the plastic cheese, and that was $1. If I would have used it towards dining credits, it would have taken up a snack credit, and that's something that you don't want to do. So I did pay out of pocket for the cheese sauce for me to be able to dip my corn dog nuggets in. I also did meet up with a family on my last day of the dining plan, and I actually ate with them at the Tusker House. So technically I was still within my dining plan window of what I spent out of pocket. And for me, eating at Tusker House was $55.79. And now the big one. Is Easter week crowded at Walt Disney World? And I'm going to say yes. It's going to be along the same lines as if you were going for Thanksgiving week or 4th of July week. That will be the crowd level. It's not quite Christmas week and New Year's week, almost there, but not quite. It didn't take like 30 to 45 minutes to get food. It didn't take 30 to 45 minutes to get from point A to point B. Like, it wasn't so suction packed that you couldn't move, but it was still pretty busy. This trip, I did use Lightning Lane Multipass in all 4 parks, and I did different scenarios for each one, and those videos are coming at you. So make sure you push that subscribe button, as I will be taking you through all the little tips and tricks about using Multipass in all of the 4 parks. But I will say, going in, so for Hollywood Studios, I set myself up for not good timing. So I went in with all of my return times in the afternoon, and I wanted to work it to where I could move up my Lightning Lane return times. And then once I was able to do that, I was able to keep them moving and be able to get all the rides throughout the day. Hollywood Studio ride waits did get up there, like 75, 90, 115 minutes for those really popular things: Slinky Dog Dash, Tower of Terror, Rise of the Resistance. It even started the morning. Rise of the Resistance did not open with early entry because it went down. One thing that you can always count on with Hollywood Studios is that it will open up earlier than early entry. During a high peak season, it will open like 30 minutes to an hour before early entry. So this particular week, it opened up 30 minutes before the early entry time, which meant on-site guests had a full hour in the park before all the other guests were let in the park, which is awesome. So if you can, and you're trying to get a lot done and you're there during a high peak season, have Hollywood Studios your early day, your rope drop day, your hour early rope drop day, because you can take advantage of it and get things done. Now, in true fashion in Hollywood Studios, Rise of the Resistance did not open with early entry, and either did Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. But everything else besides Slinky Dog Dash pretty much held a low wait, and I was able to get on things during that early entry time and knock a few things out that I did not have to use Multipass for. But whenever you are going into a high peak season, know that you need to have multiple strategies in place. You cannot just rely on Lightning Lane Multipass. As far as working Multipass in Hollywood Studios, it did end up being a pretty easy day. I did not have to be on my phone as much as I thought I was going to have to, as I was maneuvering things, to earlier return times and moving things around. Again, that video will be coming at you soon. My second day was Animal Kingdom Day, and this was my sleep-in day. I was able to walk into the park at about, I think it was 11 or 11:30, with my first Lightning Lane scheduled for 10:30 a.m. I was, on this day, able to get everything booked with Lightning Lane Multipass and hardly had any issues. I was unable to ride one actual thing, and that was Dinosaur. Every single time that my Lightning Lane got called, I went up there to go ride it, and it went down. So I actually got it booked, but was never actually able to ride it. And then I also knew going in that I was going to have to wait for at least one thing, and that was Flight of Passage. I did not deal with single pass at all this trip in any of the 4 parks, and I also wanted to test it out because it had been a while since I had closed out Animal Kingdom, and I really wanted to test out ride wait versus actual wait. And at the time that I got in line, it was a 60-minute wait. It was later in the afternoon. I did end up waiting 55 minutes. However, it was a quick 55 minutes, if that's a thing. I was talking to a very sweet family from New York, and they made the wait time go very, very quickly. I will also say that the line itself was continuously moving. We were not like standing still for any longer than 3 minutes. So that was also really good, towards that end of the day. Third day in the parks was Magic Kingdom, and this was like a 16-hour day, starting at rope drop at 6:30 in the morning, going all the way until about 11 o'clock at night. My favorite kind of Magic Kingdom day. I did use Lightning Lane Multipass for this day, did not use Single Pass. I will say the hardest ride probably for me to get and to maneuver was Peter Pan, and that's normal. And I did this on purpose because I wanted to play with the app and get in there and see what I needed to do. So it did take me a couple tries and a couple of minutes to be able to move the time. It was, let's see here, the first time that I got was at 8:40 at night, and I tried 3 different times, and I did get it, like 3 different times, just moving it up and up and up just a little bit more. Again, I will have that Lightning Lane Multipass video for Magic Kingdom coming at you, taking you through my thought process and how I went at the day and how I strategized it and all the things that you need to know. So make sure that you push that subscribe button, coming at you. Again, remember, this is Easter week, and this was another bucket list week for me to be able to be at Walt Disney World. So the week of Easter, Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny meet, and they meet in different places. So I have seen them meet at the front of the park. This particular time, they were meeting in the gazebo right behind the Ye-O Christmas shop, which is in Liberty Square. So that is where they met. Now, this is a very popular meet and greet, number one, because it's so rare and it's only open for a very short amount of time. I waited an hour, like just for them to come out for their set. And then once they opened the queue, I waited another 20 minutes to be able to actually meet them. So the whole interaction from start to finish was about an hour and a half. This is a very popular thing. I could see that parents were actually dressing up their kids to meet Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny in like their Sunday best, their Easter dress. So just know that this is a popular event. So if you are wanting to check this off your list on like your next Easter trip, just try to be there like first thing in the morning. Also in Magic Kingdom, I was testing out the new rope drop strategy and the new process. So if you are an on-site guest, you still get early entry into Magic Kingdom. So you still come down Main Street, and then towards the right-hand side of the park is where you go to check in for that area. So remember, for early entry, only Fantasyland and only Tomorrowland are open. So there's no more holding point anymore. So once you scan in with the cast members, letting them know that you are an on-site guest, you're allowed to go and get in line for the rides that you want to start out your day with. Now, keep in mind that they don't let you into the queue of the ride. So whenever I went in, I rope dropped Seven Dwarfs Mine Train that morning. So by the time I got in there, the line was already wrapped around Seven Dwarfs Mine Train against the fence. But once I realized that they hadn't actually let people into the queue yet, that actually meant that the line itself was fairly short. So just in case that you start to go in and it's an early entry and you're trying to rope drop Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and you see that the line is wrapping around the ride, like going all the way around, don't be discouraged. Still get in line. I'm telling you, it will go super quick first thing in the morning, especially as soon as they open up the queue and just start walking everybody through. And on that note of rope dropping Magic Kingdom, all other transportation usually starts showing up to all of the resorts bus-wise about an hour before early entry. Magic Kingdom's bus, however, no matter if the park opens at 8 a.m. or at 9 a.m., the buses begin showing up at the resorts at 7 a.m. So if you want to be one of those first people to like be ahead of the pack, then you want to be on one of those first buses at 7 a.m. Also keep in mind that they will have like multiple buses running back to back first thing in the morning when it's time to rope drop Magic Kingdom. And if you are staying at a monorail resort, which is basically a Magic Kingdom resort, usually the monorail doesn't open about 30 minutes before early entry. So just know that going in as well. It almost might be a shorter walk over to Magic Kingdom, depending on the resort that you're at and how early you actually want to get to the park. My last full day in the parks was Epcot using Lightning Lane Multipass. I will say with Epcot and using Lightning Lane Multipass, you absolutely need to have what you're going to get tier 1 wise, either Remy's or Frozen Lightning Lane Multipass, and then have in your head that you're either going to rope drop it or you're going to ride it at the end of the night with the lowest amount of weight. Between those two rides in Epcot, that is the hardest one to get. It took me a good 3 tries to get Remy's, and I was on there each 3 times at least 20 minutes, like sitting there for 20 minutes at a time trying to get the ride. So I would say Epcot is probably one of the hardest parks when you're trying to use Lightning Lane Multipass on the rides that get the longest waits. And again, I will be having that Multipass video coming at you and taking you through the day, my thought process, and the tips that you need to use if you are going to use Lightning Lane Multipass in Epcot. Along with Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny meeting the week of Easter, the day before and Easter Day, the Easter Parade takes place. I was able to pretty much get all of the rides except for one. I ended up doing Remy's for later that evening whenever I went back. But everything else I was able to get during the morning and finish. So I took a break in the middle of the day from Epcot and went to Magic Kingdom and watched the Easter Parade. Again, another Disney bucket checklist off of my list, and I took my time and enjoyed it. I got a sundae from the ice cream parlor, got my spot right on Main Street, sat there and enjoyed myself watching the Easter parade. I collected the confetti to put in my little scrapbook that I have. Like I said, I really enjoyed the day and soaking in that I was there and checking off being there for Easter week at Walt Disney World. So in terms of the parade, it will happen 15 minutes before the 3 o'clock parade. So it happened at 2:45, and so it's very, very short. I will also say that it's also very popular since it only happens for 2 days. I could tell that a lot of people were there for the Easter parade because the minute the Easter parade was done, most everybody left, and there was a lot of room to be able to watch the Festival of Fantasy parade, which is the main parade in Magic Kingdom. So just know that if the Easter parade is on your list, to get your spot a good 30 to 45 minutes early if you want to be like up close. Now, I cut it close because I went back and forth. Should I get an ice cream? Should I stand in line? And I decided to, and I'm glad I did because it really made the day. It really made the experience. It really made the core memory for me. And to be able to just sit there, eat my ice cream sundae on Main Street and watch the parade was just the perfect day. Now, I did get the question, were there any particular rides that I see that sold out, like without availability, without return times throughout the day? And yes. Now, with using Lightning Lane Multipass, the whole system has changed from Genie Plus and how it moves throughout the day. So if you are lucky enough to get your return times for the morning, more than likely your return times are going to be for the afternoon. Once you start using one and book one, they really have them spread out. So that is really probably one of the biggest things I have noticed with Multipass is how spread out the return times realistically are versus with Genie Plus, since you were able to use one and book one, the return times were like kind of like behind each other. Like you could get one back to back to back. It does not work perfectly every time with that. Now, can it work? It can, yes, especially like in Magic Kingdom because there are a lot of rides in Magic Kingdom. But when it comes to Hollywood Studios and Epcot, it's a whole other animal. Again, I have a full series about to come out. I have a 3-part series of sitting down and giving it to you like in this form and just mapping everything out, the things you need to be thinking about, all the things that you need to be thinking about in the pre-booking, and then also what to expect in the parks. And then I also have taking you through in real time in the parks and showing you all of that. So pretty soon I'm gonna have like a full 7 episodes of using Lightning Lane Multipass specifically. I did also get the question about the state of the world and if I saw a difference in crowd levels, and I'm gonna say no. I am not seeing a difference in crowd levels at all with the things that are going on. I think the world needs happy right now. I really do, and I'm glad people are still traveling. Whenever I go to Walt Disney World, I literally leave the world behind. I get into Mickey Mouse World, and I love that about Walt Disney World, and I love that about Disney in general. Every single trip that I take to Walt Disney World is different, especially according to the time of the year. Make sure that you check out my other playlists that I have about the time of the year that you're traveling. Within those playlists is going to give you everything that you need to know, all the weather things, all the special happenings, these trip reports letting you know expectations versus reality, how to pack, and I'm getting excited because I'm getting more and more info to be able to bring at you and to help make sure that your trip is magical. If you like this video and if it was helpful, please consider giving it a like. It really helps out the channel a lot. Also consider subscribing as I have a lot more information coming at you, making sure that you are prepared for your upcoming Walt Disney World Resort trip. I'm Terry with Creating the Magic. Have a magical day.